Hello and welcome back to the channel where we discuss all things aviation. Angelo Tibe welcoming you back. Today we're in conversation with Captain Walter Mmari. He is a captain in one of the regional airlines. He flies the Embraer. Captain Mmari's story is quite captivating. His journey to the cockpit is one that you need to listen to, one that you need to hear, because it's a story that exudes perseverance, a story that exudes patience, dedication, focus, and knowing what you want and actually working towards it no matter how long it takes. Stay with us as we talk to Captain Walter Mmari.
All right, let's take it from the top. Tell us, first of all, I need to welcome you. Welcome, Walter, and thank you for agreeing to do this interview with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. The brief background to this is we are trying to get information to young people, basically just to motivate them and to be able to say to them, listen, you can hear other aviators who are ahead of you speak about their journey so that you understand that what you're going through is not necessarily something that's unique to you. You know, there are people who have gone down the path you went down as well, and they were able to actually conquer so that they can learn from your experiences. So that's what this whole point is about. It's an attempt to address the low numbers of African people in the cockpit. It's an attempt to address the low numbers of women in the cockpit, because those two categories, it's clear that until we do something about it ourselves, we'll always be underrepresented. So thank you for taking this the invite from us to actually come and join us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I'm always happy to help and to try and inspire the younger generation.
Perhaps let's have you tell us a bit about yourself so that our aspiring aviators can get to know who we're talking to today.
All right, thank you, everyone. My name is Walter Mmari, captain on the Embraer at Airlink. I'm living now in Johannesburg, South Africa. I'm from Tanzania originally. I was born there, and then we traveled overseas, where we lived in Australia for a few years before returning to Africa, where we settled in Swaziland or Eswatini. My pilot training began in Durban in 2003 at Virginia Airport, and I finished off in Johannesburg, Headlands area.
All right, quite an interesting CV there, short introduction, but you seem to have traveled different spaces. Quite interesting, and I am certain that had a lot to do with influencing your career choice as well.
Yes, it did. Yeah, I'm at the young tender age of 1 was the first time I got onto an airliner, and yes, that's when we flew over to Australia. So at 1 year old was my first time in a jet, Boeing 747, and I got a chance to sit on the flight deck, meet the crew, and every year we'd fly at least twice, maybe. For the first 7 to 8 years of my life, I was always flying around, and that's how I got the aviation bug.
Nice, interesting. Most aviators usually, make that reference to around 5 years old when they see aircraft, or they have a chance to fly in the cockpit back in the day when it could still be possible. But I see that you had a head start from as early as 1 year old already.
Before I could even talk, yes, I was ready.
No, it was bound to happen. Wow. Okay. Perhaps take us through your journey to the cockpit. I mean, starting from obviously the PPL all the way to where you are at now.
Yes. Okay. Well, I started in 2003 for my private pilot's license there in Virginia at Natal Flight Academy, flying the Cessnas, the 152s. It took me about a year to get the PPL, and then I took a break for about 2 years. And then in that period, I traveled to Tanzania back home to do some hour building. Came back to Johannesburg, Pretoria, and then the blue chip aviation, I got my night rating, and then I stopped training, because the funds were depleted. And then to carry on the story, I got a job at Airlink at the dispatch office due to a good friend of mine. and I worked in as a dispatcher and basically a senior manager as well at the airline flight operations for 6 years before in the meantime, paying for my training. And then afterwards, I applied for a cadet program at Airlink when I got my commercial pilot's license. And lucky and fortunately for me, I got my application was approved, and I started flying on the right-hand seat of the Jetstream 41.
Interesting to note the times between starting from scratch to your PPL was influenced by availability of funds, and again the time between getting your PPL to getting your CPL was also influenced by the availability of funds. But you don't let that put you down. You actually decided, to keep hustling. Got that job as a side job. I mean, as your main job to pay for your aviation training.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, it was. The decision was already made that I was going to fly airplanes. I was going to be a pilot. So it was just a matter of navigating my way around it, and getting the job as a dispatcher. Obviously, it wasn't. It's hard being a dispatcher when all you got to do is fly airplanes. Then you're sitting there and you're seeing pilots in and out, and it's all you got to do. But it also helps push you and motivate you to continue training, and that's and to pay for the hours, and yeah, it wasn't, as I said, it wasn't the initial part of the plan, but that's how it worked out, and I'm grateful for every moment as in the office.
Mm-hmm. Now, I guess it takes a lot of dedication, knowing what you want and actually pushing to get it. Because the timelines you are giving are typical timelines for the ordinary African child who may not have the financial muscle to pay for themselves, but they end up finding a way of using another approach where you get a job and the job pays for your aviation. Okay, your commercial pilot license also raises an issue that I usually advise young people to do, because most of them will come to you and say, where can I get funding? I really want to be a pilot. And I'm like, young person, everybody really wants to be a pilot, but only those who are willing to sacrifice.
Yes.
Go to university if you must. Start a business if you must. Get a job if you must. So that other hustle pays for your dream to become a pilot. So it's interesting that now today I'm talking to someone and exactly that. Patience over time, dedication, sacrifice, paying for yourself until you eventually get there. So, and you got your opportunity to enter the cockpit with your airline. It's a very, very, I'd say, early stage of your flying, having just completed your CPL.
Yes, that's correct. I had literally completed my CPL. I had 200 hours, 200.3 to be exact. I actually remember how many hours I had when I got back.
We all remember those milestones.
I had worked it out so well that when I got to 200, I was testing already. Starting on the Jetstream was a big jump, huge, massive jump. You get into the airline environment with experienced crew and multi-crew. So that was a huge jump, a huge learning curve. But all in all, I appreciate every moment of it.
Nice.
Yeah,
in your high school subjects and perhaps anything else post high school, what would you say were the subjects that stood out or that helped you a lot in making it easier for you to train as a pilot?
Well, fortunately for me, the first time I got onto an aircraft was at the age of 1, when we flew overseas to Melbourne in Australia. So I knew at a very young age, and I fell in love with aviation at a very young age. So I was asking around, and the subjects that helped me was definitely mathematics. I think that it's imperative. You have to have maths. And then another one that sort of helps would be geography, because they do cover the basics of of geography, weather as well, and maps and chart reading.
Okay.
I did science. I also did science and biology and those, but the main ones for me were maths and geography.
Okay. No, that's interesting. Because there'll be lots of those elements in in your studies as you continue as training as a pilot. So
Yes.
yeah, it makes sense. That's an interesting journey. Your your commercial pilot journey is quite interesting, and I think any student who is self-funded will sort of relate with the struggles of doing one subject when you can, passing it, moving on to the other, trying to make sure they don't expire, and eventually sitting with your subject and now trying to get the money to push the necessary hours and putting in an hour here and an hour there until everything comes together. It's quite interesting that your struggle is basically the struggle
Yes.
of almost every aviator that I know.
Yes, so that's correct, Moni. That's correct. And then fortunately, being in the company already, I applied, I passed the interview, and I started training. But now, for me, I was very fortunate because I only had 200 hours as a commercial pilot, and the first job I got on Jetstream 41 in an airline. So I was extremely fortunate.
Indeed, you were. But I guess hard work pays off at the end anyway.
Yes, yeah, it does. Yes. So I started on the Jetstream 4 in 2013, and I got 4 years getting 2,000 hours on type.
How is it flying the Embraer? I see you go to very beautiful destinations in South Africa.
Yes. No, then I moved to the Embraer in 2017 as a first officer. Been on that fleet now for 3 years, just over 3 years, and we fly to how many destinations? Maybe I don't take the quote, but it's quite a lot. It's maybe
quite a lot.
30 to 40 destinations. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, okay.
And we love every minute, Yes.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yes.
My next question was going to be about the issue of aviation being an expensive field. Aviation being an expensive field, but you've already given your own experience on how you handled it, by taking up the next job that was available and then using that to pay for aviation. What other advice would you give to aspiring aviators in regards to raising funds for their training?
That's a good question. Yes, obviously you have to take what you get. I think that's a very big. That's you never know where it's going to get you. I know a lot of students who want to be pilots, and I think there's no shortcuts. Even if you get a job as a waiter, it's not. That's not the point. Just remember, it's a step. It's all a step to where you need to be.
Yeah.
So plan it out, find out all the costs, the time, and start doing things one by one, and even the first job you get as a pilot might not be a great job. Everyone thinks you're going to start straight in airlines. It's not. That's highly unlikely.
Yeah. That reminds me of a comment I saw in one of the groups on Facebook. Someone asked the question, what is the fastest way to become a pilot? And there were about 20 responses, all of them saying one thing: there is no fast way, there's no shortcut. Just do your thing and be patient.
Yeah. That's it. That's so true. There is no fast way,
Yeah.
Just to put it into perspective, I started my PPL in 2003, and I got my COM in 2013. That was 10 years.
Yeah.
10 whole years, just to put that into perspective for anyone who wants to do things quick. You can do it very quick if you have all the funding.
Exactly.
But if you don't, then you must. Yeah.
Just be patient. Yeah.
Yes. Exactly.
All right. What are your challenges and what were your highlights? Things that challenged you or that were barriers, and then things that sort of stood out for you, where you had a wow moment during your training as you move towards the various stages of your training.
Yeah, no, for me, the wow really was when I moved on to the jet stream. I had 200 hours and I was flying a big machine. That was for me a big highlight, getting into the simulator of a jet stream with other airline pilots.
Yeah.
And I wasn't, I think that getting a comm and flying an actual airline turboprop it's two different things,
Yeah.
So I learned a whole lot. I learned that, when you've come out with your comm, you feel big and you feel like you know everything. But trust me, once you get into big jet, you realize you know nothing. That was one of the highlights, was obviously flying the jet stream. The second real big highlight was being moved onto the left seat on the jet, onto the Embraer. Yep. That's a big responsibility that even to this day I'm humbled, and I know that we don't take it for granted to being a commander.
Yes.
It's a lot of work. You can't just walk into the office and start flying. You need to prep the day before. You need to be, basically you're the leader, so you need to know what's happening around, where you're going, anything.
Okay. And what would you say were the challenges?
The main challenge was multi-crew. You need to now start flying as a multi-crew pilot. It's no more single crew. Yeah. And that's a challenge to understand that you've got your responsibilities on the flight deck, and your first officer has his responsibilities. And it doesn't matter, because I fly with the same person maybe once every 3 to 4 months. So every day it's someone else.
Okay. So that called for some serious teamwork.
So a big challenge is having, knowing the standard operating procedures.
Okay, nice. Now
we all train at a certain level, and you need to know that whoever you're. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Now your ascension to commanding the Embraer, and anything to share on that experience, moving to the left seat.
It was demanding. It was hard. What to share some experience would be, obviously you need to study a lot. It's getting your ATP and your comm and all that is great, but to move on to the left seat, you are at the end of the day the responsible for this equipment, for the passengers, for everything. It was a lot of hard work. I think that was the hardest work I've done. From in flying, was moving to the left seat. Lots of sleepless nights. You need to know everything inside out.
It makes sense, because you are now seen as the commander of this aircraft, and everything rests on you.
That's correct. Yes, and that's correct. And you need to be ahead. If there's one piece of advice I always like to say is, you need to be one step ahead of the aircraft at all times. You cannot not know what's happening next, and it's the same with your flight planning. You need to know where you're going the next day. You need to find out what's happening at the airport. You're always prepping for what's next. And so the night before the flight, you're going through the note times, the weather, even the news, just to see what's happening in Madagascar.
Interesting. Now that you're saying that, it reminds me of a question I get a lot from non-aviators. So what does it take to be a pilot? And of course, you start talking to them with the PPL, and you tell them, no, 45 hours. And they're like, I can get that next week. And I always tell them, dudes, it's not a matter of just 45 hours and you're done. Because for every hour, there's so many hours that are not counted. Preparation, and after you've actually finished the actual flight.
Yes.
So I think that to hear you then say that moving to the left seat requires actually more sleepless nights, even before you make your way to the airport. You've already started working the night before, and you'll probably be working way after the passengers have disembarked. You will still be there filling up forms and stuff. I recently posted something on Facebook. I've been researching around this for quite some time, but the statistics are quite not easy to come about. So the latest statistics I have are 2017 statistics from the CAA. Basically, I was looking at the ATPL and checking the demographic breakdown of license holders in that regard for both fixed wing and for rotor aircraft. But I'm most interested in the fixed wing sector, and the statistics are dire. They don't paint a good picture. For Africans, I think Africans are number 2, followed by colored or Indian. Yeah, Africans are number 2, followed by Indian. Then the last is colored. At the top is white males in South Africa in terms of who hold the ATPL. Those are the statistics. What are the challenges? Why, as a country, are we at that level where, in a country that is a majority black, when you move to training in this regard, and obviously the picture of how the cockpit looks, you have the opposite of the racial breakdown of the country. What are the causes, and what could be perhaps the remedies for such?
That's a good question. And yes, we have been struggling to get the numbers right. And the main challenge is finances. It's not a finances and opportunity. It's not a cheap training, and also obviously if you take if you get the funding, the chances of you qualifying are not that high. There's students who have got funding but they've failed, and then it's a bigger challenge for the institutions who are funding them.
Okay, yeah. So funding is one of the main issues. Yeah. I guess the same could be said of women, because when you look at the statistics in terms of gender as well, women are not represented in the cockpit.
Yes,
each time I fly as a passenger and I see a woman as part of the crew, something goes off in your mind, like, oh, okay, there is a bit of representation here. Women face a lot of challenges. I can't even begin to say what the causes are, but it's worth noting that we're also lacking in that regard as a country.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's true. I think maybe from a young age also it's good to get the attention and the interest of the youth into aviation. At the moment, I think at the moment the idea is that it's impossible, and the youth start young thinking, oh, we're not going to be pilots because it's so exclusive. So we need to change that dialogue and say that anyone can, if you obviously put your mind to it, and if the parents are aware that their child wants to get into aviation, they already know that that they should start already looking into what are the costs and what from a young age.
Yeah, you're right. Because I was talking to another pilot from Kenya the other time, a female, and she said that her grandmother asked her when she mentioned that she was going to train as a pilot, that you're going to fly an aircraft and you're a woman. How are you going to do that? And so she had to explain, no, grandma, it's not about muscles and being strong. It's about learning how to fly this machine using your brains and being competent. So we need as a society to change the narrative there, to allow the girl child to know that she too can go into the cockpit.
Yes.
Awesome.
That's exactly it. That is the truth.
I see you have a music interest, and if you can tell us about that, that would be interesting. And number 2, I've seen a lot of negative forecast because of Corona. And I've always said to people, aviation survived 9/11. Aviation survived the 2008 credit crunch. Let's see where this goes. If you have any comments on those 2.
Yes, music is also a passion. I've always grown up knowing that music was something I really enjoyed, and flying was another thing I really enjoyed. And I still do music. I record and I produce music professionally also, and I'm under my own name, Walter Mmari, and it's just experimental ambient music. I play the guitar, and I'm also associated with a record label up in the UK. So it's if you want to listen to some of our music, you can. And it's a huge passion of mine, and I absolutely enjoy it and love making music. And strangely enough, the flying feeds into the inspiration for the music. So flying and, late nights and watching the sunset and all that, that also feeds right into me sitting at home with my music in my studio and working on music. And then now with the COVID situation for aviation, 2001 was quite bad. We recovered. 2008 was another bad year financially. We've recovered. COVID it's different in the sense that it's international. Aviation globally has to shut down, which has never happened before. My thought personally is that it'll take a while to build.
So what tips can you give to future aviators, those who are aspiring to enter the cockpit? What tips would you give them?
Good. I think the tips would be for the young aviators, firstly, you need to first of all be very passionate about aviation. It's a very demanding job. It's not all glamour. There's lots of early days, late nights, nights away from the house. I've got when you start to work at 5, you've got to wake up at 3 or 3:30 at the latest. So you've got to be passionate and make sure that's what you want to do. Because the training is rigorous. Every couple of months we're in the simulator, we're training. The job is not even a guaranteed job, whereas if you do another career, once you finish, you've got your job. Whereas aviation, every 6 months, you have to prove that you can remain in the flight deck, So you're going to be working, you're going to be studying for the rest of your life. And you need to understand this. You need to also take your own time. Nowadays with technology, you can get on the internet, you can search for flight schools. There was a young fellow I was talking to, I was telling him, why not go to the flying school and spend the whole day there, and get to know the people and to find out what is required of you. And once you know what you need and the funding available, then you can start, if you can't do it yourself, you can either apply for funding. Again, I'm not too sure where, but you can apply for funding, and you can use your other talents, whatever other talents you have to earn a living or to start paying for your training as you go. Most people who would fund an aviator would want to at least see if you've got a PPL. I know that you have what it takes to get your comm. At least you've done the work, the groundwork yourself. So I'd say definitely to spend every moment looking into that, and also don't. I think another good tip is it's a long game. We're playing a long game. So the first job you get might not be what you want. You're not going to get into the airline initially. So take whatever you can get as long as it helps you achieve at the end game, which is a commercial pilot license or an airline pilot license.
Interesting tips. You mentioned that you advise someone to go spend a day, just check out the school that they intend to go to. I did a series on that earlier on in the year, where I talked about the need for there to be a relationship between the people at the school and the student. Because obviously, if you're going to choose a school that does not have people skills, that doesn't care about who you are and what you want to achieve, and only sees a cash cow in you, you will not finish this whole thing. So I'm glad that you also advise this person to go check the school, see what vibes they get there, and if it's suitable for them before they can actually join.
Yes, no, that's so true. And for myself, I also went to about 5 flying schools, during the course of my training. So I did change as obviously as the time changed, and the people play a big part in your training.
No, that's interesting to hear. Thanks for that tip. I'm sure quite a number of aspiring aviators will learn a lot, and they will be able to chart their path towards the cockpit from the nuggets you've shared with them. Walter, I'd like to take this time to thank you for allowing us to interview you, and for bearing with us even when technology was refusing to make this thing work.
No, that's beautiful. I appreciate it. You're doing a good job.
Thank you.
We need to try and inspire the young guys out there. I know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you so much for pulling through. We will be in touch.
All right. Thanks, Angelo. You take care.
Cheers.
I hope you enjoyed that talk, and I hope in your own journey towards the cockpit you've picked up a number of pointers that you could use to perhaps motivate yourself and to perhaps say to yourself, listen, stay the full course, because whatever it is that I aspire to be, I will eventually get there. Others have gone through this journey. They've been as patient as I am. I need to be patient like they were in order for me to actually enter that cockpit. Remember to keep doing what you need to do for you to actually get into that cockpit. Whether it's an hour of flying, whether it's an hour of studying, whether it's an hour of searching for more information, whether it's an hour of talking to people who are ahead of you in order to get how their own journey was configured, so that you can also configure your own. And remember, with every hour the cockpit beckons. Angela Dube here, urging you to click like and to click subscribe in the buttons below, and to join us again in the future as we discuss more aviation related stuff.